everyone. I welcome you all for our today's study circle meeting on Auditor's Report, Recent Changes and COVID-19 Reporting Obligations. It's a great honor for me to introduce a very learned, knowledgeable and an experienced person, an experienced member with us, CA Hinal Bhai Patel. He has a rich experience of over 15 years and possesses sharp analytical skills and has an expert knowledge on accounting standards, RBI regulations, corporate laws and direct tax laws. He is the engagement partner for statutory audits of large corporates of the firms into various sectors like banking, housing finance, mutual funds, infrastructure, energy, steel, cement, aluminum, and so on. He provides consultation relating to RBI regulations, NDS related matters, corporate laws, and tax planning. He is currently the member of the council member of the Chamber of Tax Consultant and is the chairman of its accounting and auditing committee. He has also co-authored a book named Non-Banking Financial Companies, a treatise published by BCS. He is also empaneled as a technical reviewer with Financial Reporting Review Board of ICAI. He is a regular faculty for delivering lectures on accounting and auditing related topics. His technical expertise includes carrying out audits in accordance with the international standards on auditing and auditing standards followed in India. He has an expert knowledge in Indian GAAP, IFRS, and business valuations. With this brief introduction, I request now Hinal Bhai to kindly share this session, take this session, and educate our members on this topic.
Thank you so much. Good evening, friends. Thank you, Mehul Bhai, for a kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Vile Parle CP Study Circle, Mehul Bhai, Janam Bhai, for inviting me to address the August gathering. In today's session, I'll be dealing with auditor's report, recent changes, and COVID-19 reporting obligation, which actually now is the need of the hour. So we'll be dealing with those changes.
Just a minute, Hinal Bhai, sorry for interruption.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell the members that whenever they have any questions, they can just raise their questions and put it there in the Q&A tab. And also, once the presentation is done, we will open this session we'll open this session and we'll ask the members to ask the questions directly to the speaker. Okay, so then I think that will be more comfortable, Hinal Bhai. Hinal Bhai? Yeah. We can now continue.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So friends, before I start my talk, I would like to thank apart from the names which I have mentioned, the Institute of Chartered of India, this PPT which has been prepared by me is on the basis of the material which was published by ICAI, the essays of course given by our ICAI. Apart from that, I also refer to various commentaries and articles written by various senior professionals. So the PPT which I am presenting is culmination of all professionals' views and also the material which I have gathered from them. So I would like to thank before I start the session. Now with this, I'll be starting the session. So friends, the auditor's responsibility in forming an opinion on the financial statement is dealt with by SS 700, forming an opinion and reporting on the financial statements, which also deals with an unmodified auditor's opinion. There is another SS 705, modification to the opinion on the independent financial auditor's report, which deals with auditor's responsibility to issue an appropriate report. There are circumstances when forming an opinion in accordance with SS 700, the auditor concludes that modification to the auditor's opinion on the financial statement is necessary. Now, in terms of 705, if auditor concludes that based on the audit evidence which the auditor has obtained, the financial statement as a whole is not free from material misstatement, or if auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence to conclude that the financial statement is not free from material misstatement. In both the circumstances, auditor should modify the auditor's opinion. In the recent past, there has been significant changes that has been brought in by the regulators. Today, we'll be dealing with those changes and also briefly understand why those changes have been warranted, or why these cyber sectors have brought those changes, and which is required to be done by these cyber sectors. So this is the content of my presentation, which briefly explains the changes in the auditor's report, the requirement of standard auditing regarding 700, 705, 570, and so on and so forth. Apart from that, understanding the changes, this is the opinion, going concern, impact of COVID-19 on auditors reporting, other information, auditors responsibility on other information, and key audit matters. Friends, kindly. Hello.
Yes, Hinel bhai. Yeah, now it is audible.
So if you permit me, then I'll just keep my video off so that I think there is some bandwidth issue. I think I never
Right, right.
experienced that, but this is first time I'm experiencing. So there is some bandwidth issue. But if it is audible, then I'll go ahead with my presentation.
And now it is audible, Hinel bhai. I think we can go ahead.
Okay, sure. So friends, the new audit report requirement are the end result of years of discussion between IISP and stakeholders. If we go back, the financial crisis, the global financial crisis in 2007, which actually gave a voice to the enhanced and powerful reporting by the auditors. This is required basically to keep the investor confidence. In fact, the question at that time was raised that what auditor did, why auditor didn't give more details and so on. Further, there was a research conducted then where it was found that only thing which people were reading in the auditor's report was only the opinion paragraph. Basically, they are more concerned with whether the entity has actually passed or failed. But do you really think it is sufficient? No, and that is the reason why. So it was felt that the erstwhile auditor's report were incomplete. Stakeholders could not really differentiate between the diverse situation at diverse companies. Globally, under IFRS, and in India, under Ind AS, financial statements are highly dependent on estimates, fair value, judgments, substance over form. Without reporting how auditor dealt with such aspects, the auditor's report was incomplete, and that is the reason why there has been change. It has resulted putting a new audit reporting format. So what are those changes? Putting opinion paragraph right at the beginning of the auditor's report. Introduction. Friends, there is some more internet connectivity problem. Let me rejoin. Give me 2 minutes, friends. बंद करो मारो अंदर अभी इंटरनेट आउट बंद कर दो थोड़ी Hello.
Yes, Hinal bhai. Yes.
Now it is
Yeah,
audible, Hinal bhai.
yeah, I have changed the network connection. I hope I am able to deliver. Sorry for the interruption. I really apologize for this delay.
It's okay. That is understood, Hinal bhai. Just one request. Can we just start from the first slide itself?
Yeah, sure,
We haven't
sure.
used much. I think that will be more comfortable for everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So I'm just starting from the starting slide. So friends, the new audit reporting requirements are the end results of, as I mentioned to you, it's the end result of years of discussion between ISB and stakeholders. Now, if you go back to the history, during 2006 financial crisis, there was a voice which has been raised that what auditors did at that time. Why auditors have not sufficiently reported those delinquencies in time so as to, get those early warning signals and so that this could be avoided. Now, there was a research conducted thereafter wherein it was, the research in terms of what kind of auditors report which stakeholder is actually warranting. Therein, it was found that most of the stakeholders were only looking at the opinion paragraph, which is not strictly a correct thing to do when they are reading the entire audited financial statement. And that is the reason why there has been a change in the auditor's reporting format. So it was felt that Osh Auditor's report was really incomplete and were mainly, similar to one another. The stakeholder could not differentiate the diverse institutions and diverse companies. Globally, where there are IFRS in India, there is Ind AS. The financial statements are largely depend on estimates, fair value, judgment, substance over form. Now, without reporting how auditor dealt with such aspects in the auditor's report was incomplete, and in this background, this has resulted into change in the auditor's reporting format. Now, changes is basically putting the opinion paragraph right at the beginning of the auditor's report because that is the most commonly viewed paragraph in auditor's report. There was introduction of a key audit matter paragraph for listed entities as of now, which will be dealing with subsequent slides. The enhanced responsibility paragraph with regard to management and auditors also has came into picture. And also the reporting of emphasis of matter on going concern specifically and other information. Now, these are the changes which has been brought in subsequent to the change in the financial reporting framework. So in India, the need for disclosure in auditor's report is increased more as a regulatory reaction to various financial schemes that has periodically have came into media. Actually, which has also created a stakeholder pressure for entrusting more responsibility on the auditors. Elevation of large frauds tend to become a political embarrassment for the government and the regulators. MCA wants the auditors or wants the auditor financial statement to give warning of fraud much before it actually happens. And that is how they wanted to, shift the burden of proof on the auditors. Such enhanced transparency is required to facilitate the users of the financial statement in understanding the significant judgment made by the auditor in forming his opinion on financial statement. Recently, friends, the enhanced CARO 2020 is an illustrative example of extended role of auditor and how are we expected to perform going forward. Today, we have 7 essays which deals with audit conclusion and reporting. These are the list of essays basically which largely deals with auditors reporting, conclusion, and other aspects. While we carry out the audit in accordance with standard auditing, we may conclude on the following. Either we issue a modified audit opinion, which is dealt with SS 700, or modified auditor's opinion due to material misstatement or inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, SS 705, or inclusion of material uncertainty relating to going concern paragraph, SS 570 revised, or inclusion of emphasis of matter or other matter paragraph in the auditor's report, SS 706. And if for listed entities presently, mandatorily, inclusion of key audit matter, which dealt with SS 701. Apart from that, we are also expected to review the other information which contains in the financial statement other than balance sheet and notes to accounts. That is dealt with SS 720. This is just a graphical presentation of how it was earlier and how it is now. If you see the earlier version, it was started with title and addressing and the introductory paragraph. In the revised version, the first paragraph is opinion paragraph, and which is rightly so because the most important paragraph for any audited financial statement, auditor's report is opinion paragraph. So what is audit report? Now, audit report is a culmination of audit process, and such report earlier was only containing an opinion which on the financial statement. Therefore, there has been an urgent need Friends, I'm getting message that my voice is still not clear. I'm just trying hard. I just update my mic. Yeah, hello.
Yes, Hinal bhai. Yes.
Yeah, now it is audible, I think. Laptop.
Because this is, I am now directly talking through the mic of the laptop.
Now it is very clear, Hinal bhai. I think we should continue this way only.
Okay.
So
Again,
mic of the
I
laptop.
apologize. No, again apologize. So
That's
we are on the changes in the auditor's report. So as we discussed, the opinion paragraph is in the front, along with the basis of opinion paragraph, which is now needs to be reported for all the reports. Earlier, the basis of opinion paragraph was not warranted for all the reports. Additionally, there are 3 reporting paragraphs which have been introduced, namely going concern, KM, and other information. The detailed description of how now required to be given respect of auditor's responsibility. Now we need to realize that the enhanced reporting is not as simple as it looks on the face of it. By making specific return and sign assertion on KM, going concern, and auditor's responsibility in the auditor's report, there are better chance to implicate the auditor for negligence in the court of law. So let us understand what is change for auditors. As far as audit process is concerned, there is no change in the current audit process. So what is changed? The communication. The communication with those charged with governance. Now, specifically, auditors are required to communicate to those charged with governance, identified specific significant risk, that is, matter requiring special audit consideration. In this case, professional spectrism plays a key role. Since key audit matter, their identification and procedure performed, etc. is now specifically spelled out in the auditor's report. In KM reporting, all matter that we believe are key audit matters are included in the auditor's report despite a potential challenge from management or those charged with government. And lastly, there is increased challenges by the user of the financial statement, including regulators. So now these are basically changes which has been warranted. So basis of opinion. Now auditor need to state that audit is concluded in accordance with the standard auditing and he is independent of the entity. And also, he has collected audit evidence for forming audit opinion. One important aspect which we have to keep in mind is that the firm should establish a system of quality control in accordance with SQC1. Such system is designed to provide with reasonable assurance that the firm, its personnel, comply with professional standards and regulatory requirements and ensure that the report issued by the engagement partners are appropriate in the circumstances. So SQC1 manual has to be properly maintained by the firms while issuing the auditor's report. That is very important. The auditor shall express an unmodified opinion when auditor concludes that the financial statements are prepared in all material aspects in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. Now, what is an applicable financial reporting framework? Either it is IGAAP, that is Companies Accounting Standard Rule 2006, or Ind AS, which is a company's Indian Accounting Standard Rule 2015 as amended. If financial statements do not achieve fair presentation, the auditor shall discuss the matter with management. And depending upon the requirements of applicable financial reporting framework, and the matter should be resolved. In case, if they are unable to resolve those matters, then it is necessary to modify the auditor's opinion in accordance with SS 705, which will be covered in subsequent slides. Under unmodified opinion, the auditor's opinion shall use paragraph stating that, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statement present fairly in all material aspect, which is basically emphasis added in accordance with financial reporting framework, or it may give accompanying financial statement gives true and fair view. So there is basically a fair presentation framework under the unmodified opinion. Now, this is one of the most important aspects, is a change from the 2019, going concern auditor responsibility. Now, it is auditor's responsibility to obtain a sufficient appropriate audit evidence and conclude the appropriation of management's use of going concern in preparation of the financial statement. Now, this responsibility exists even if the financial reporting framework do not include explicit requirement for the management to make a specific assessment on the entity's ability to continue the going concern. Here, the auditor is expected to obtain management's evaluation in writing wherever there are indicators. Friends, the indicators of going concern has been given in SA 570. One can go through those indicator list. The auditor must see if evaluation is realistic or not. Also assess the assumptions used in the evaluation and must challenge those assumptions with utmost professional skepticism. At times, management uses aggressive assumptions for future profitabilities and cash flows. As an auditor, we should not accept them without appropriate audit evidence. Here, I would like to give a practical hint that wherever there is a doubt, better to give disclosure than take a risk. Raise the red flag even if you don't want to qualify the audit opinion. You also need to perform an alternative audit procedures and do a detailed documentation to safeguard yourself. This procedure includes analyzing and discussing cash flow, profit, and other relevant forecasts with the management. Also analyzing and discussing with the management latest available inter-financial statement. So basically, wherever the companies are listed, you may get those quarterly results. Reading the terms of the debenture, the loan agreements, and determining whether they have been breached. Also, going through the minutes of shareholders or to those charged with governance or the relevant committees for understanding the financial difficulty which company is facing. Inquiring with the company's legal counsel regarding the existence of any litigation claim and the reasonableness of the management's assessment and the outcome thereof, and also made a fair estimate of their financial implication. when confirming the existence, legality, and enforceability of the arrangement to provide and maintain the financial support. Evaluate company's plan to deal with unfilled customer orders. Performing the audit procedures regarding subsequent event to identify whether those mitigating factors are available to counter such events. Now one can ask us as to which period is to be considered for assessing the going concern. Now in evaluating management assessment of the entity's ability to continue as a going concern, the auditor shall cover the same period as required by the applicable financial reporting framework or by the laws and regulation. If it specifies a period, if there are longer periods specified, then you have to consider the longer period. If management estimate covers less than 12 months from the date of financial statement, then the auditor should request the management to extend the period of assessment for at least 12 months from the date of assessment. Now that is very important, friends. Generally, audit conclusion on going concern includes sufficient audit evidence obtained to conclude the appropriation of going concern assumption, or auditor conclude in his professional judgment that a material uncertainty exists regarding conditions or event that individually or collectively cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern. Normally, material uncertainty exists when the magnitude of the potential impact or the likelihood of those occurrence is such that in the auditor's judgment, appropriate disclosure of the nature of implication of the uncertainty is necessary for financial reporting framework. If auditor concludes that management use of going concern is appropriate, but there is a material uncertainty which exists, then he should adequately disclose the principal event or condition and management's plan to deal with those conditions. Also, auditors should clearly state that there is a material uncertainty relating to the going concern and that the entities may be unable to realize its assets or discharge its liability in the normal course of business. Such disclosure may also include the disclosure about management's evaluation of the significant events and significant judgment made by the management in making this assessment. These are the disclosure requirement as far as going concern is concerned. So just to give you your tabular presentation, if financial statements are prepared on a going concern basis, but in auditor's judgment, use of going concern is inappropriate, then auditor will give an adverse opinion. Second condition, scenario where going concern basis is appropriate, but material uncertainty exists and adequate disclosure is made. In such circumstances, auditor should give an unmodified opinion, that is clean opinion. But the report should contain a separate paragraph called material uncertainty relating to going concern, which draws attention to the related note, which states that the events and condition that indicates that material uncertainty exists, and also which contains the auditor's opinion is not modified in this respect. The third scenario, material uncertainty exists and adequate disclosure is not made in the financial statement. Now here, either we can give a qualified opinion or adverse opinion as appropriate, depending upon the perception of the matter. Now, what are the options in case of going concern assumption is not met? In such circumstances, the entity may choose to present the financial statement as per another basis of financial reporting framework. That is based on the liquidation basis. The auditor in such circumstances may perform audit accordingly and issue unmodified audit opinion provided there is an adequate disclosure about changed basis of accounting. Auditor may also consider to incorporate emphasis of matter paragraph which draws users' attention to the alternative basis of accounting and the reason therefore. This is the additional responsibility if the going concern accounting is not made in that sense. Now, going concern under the COVID scenario. Now, as a part of going concern assessment, it is critical for the management to assess what impact the current events and condition have on entities' operation and forecasted cash flows, with a focus on whether the entity will have sufficient liquidity to continue to meet the obligation as and when it falls due. This is basically a graphical, chart which Institute has published in his advisory. So basically, which is of course covered in subsequent slides. So I'm just skipping this slide. Yeah. Yeah. So management need to consider the existing and anticipated effect of COVID-19 on the assumption is missed in his assessment. Now, management should develop a range scenario, for example, a different time period of expected lockdown to determine the potential impact of underlying performance and the future funding requirements. Auditor may ask, key questions or inquiry regarding the going concern under the COVID-19 situation, which includes: has management performed preliminary assessment of entities' ability to continue going concern? Yes or no? Were there interruptions in supply or production cycle of the entities due to COVID-19 outbreak? And if so, does management have a feasibility recovery plan? Do these events or conditions cast significant doubt on entities' ability to continue going concern? Are these disruptions expected to continue for a foreseeable future? And the action plan of the management to mitigate this risk. Are there any financial difficulties resulting in additional credit risk higher than usual bad debts, for example, or a potential impairment or write-off because of COVID-19 outbreak? Has management considered the situation in their assessment while concluding the entity's ability to continue going concern? Are there any potential issues relating to the debt, including debt covenants, which are applicable to entities? And has management considered those situations in their assessment while entities' ability to continue the going concern? These are the key questions one should consider while assessing the impact of COVID-19 on the present financial statements. So which are the other matters which can be considered by the management while assessing? These are regulatory considerations, operating environmental considerations, and liquidity considerations. Friends, the COVID-19 pandemic is likely to have a significant implication on the global economic and market conditions. And because of this, there are various industries which are getting impacted. And those industries are such as restaurants and entertainment, hospitality, retail, travel, especially aviation. However, this does not necessarily mean that material uncertainty automatically exists. The increased risk of significant doubt to continue as a going concern will rather depend on the nature and circumstances of the entity, including the industry in which it operates. The auditor, as an auditor, should assess how management addresses such consideration, which is either regulatory consideration or operating environmental consideration or liquidity consideration, and their impact on the entity. This assessment involves judgment, and it is the auditor's responsibility to maintain appropriate level of professionalism. There are various sources of information which may provide evidence to assess the reasonableness of assumptions, like you may go through the industry reports published in the recent past, or analyst report for those listed entities or the segments in which your company operates, third-party studies specifically conducted for your company, or data given by or government sources regarding the severity of the pandemic and the impact on financial state, on the economic downturn and other implications. The management should consider the regulatory considerations such as the impact of measures taken by government in all the countries where this entity operates. If your entity is operating in different countries on a globe, then one should consider those government measures taken by the respective countries' government to overcome this pandemic. The other consideration is the changes in the entities' access to capital, which may be impacted due to COVID-19, or entities' ability to meet the regulatory ratios. These are the considerations which one has to consider under the regulatory consideration. Operating consideration is, here one should consider the level of lost revenue and cash flows, including the effect of rebate, refunds, and allowances. Also, one should consider the level of pricing, volume volatility impacting revenue. The risk relating to the delivering of product and services is also that there is popularly known as a break of supply chain. Then entities' inability to honor the certain terms of contract, leading to a penalty by regulators or counterparties or invocation of force majeure clause. Now, this may result into a huge losses to the entity because of non-commitment, not delivering the commitment under the contract. There may be impact of raw material pricing due to sourcing challenges, and it may impact my operating cost and ultimately impact the projected gross margin. There may be impact of my operating cost due to supply of restricted material or unavailability of workforce. Those additional costs also need to be factored and adjusted in the post-COVID-19 scenario to understand the implication on the future cash flow forecast. One important aspect one is to consider is the restart cost. Now, many companies, during this lockdown must have shut their production line because of non-availability of various factors, right? So sometimes those industries which is a huge amount of restart cost, one should also consider those restart costs as a part of future cash flows to assess the company's ability to continue going concern. Liquidity consideration, the risk relating to the receivables. Now, there may be a risk which may be resulting into a failure of the counterparties for honoring the commitment. So there will be a possibility that the payment terms may not get honored, or there may be a risk of business expansion into a new sector, which companies already undertaken, and which has resulted into a cash flow crunch for the immediate near future. We also have to consider the source of available cash to the entity, which may be either from shareholders, or maybe from related parties or a group companies, or from the lenders. There may be a situation where company may be facing an asset liability mismatch, especially in the financial institution companies where there may be adverse implication of ALM gap. So we need to also understand how this management is bridging those asset liability mismanagement gap. There may be impact of funding due to a potential covenant breaches or material adverse event that caused that agreement. So those are things which one has to consider by assessing the liquidity consideration. There may be a risk of contingent liability, like devolvement of LC or not honoring of bank guarantee on time, or there may be another risk of not giving funding as committed by the parent company. Now, where the companies which largely depend for their funding on the holding company, there may be a situation due to this COVID pandemic, they may not have sufficient cash flows available with them to fund at the right time. So there may be a situation where you have a risk of not availability of funds from the parent company. One should also consider the stress test scenario for all these implications. So now, audit procedures. An auditor should perform to evaluate the management plan. So what should we do? Inquiry should be made whether the plan have been shared with those charged with governance, lenders, regulators, or outside credit analysts. For each significant assumption, the auditor should evaluate management's ability and intent to carry out actions on which the assumption is based, including whether the assumption is consistent with the management's specific objective and strategies. This is very important. Sometimes, by making aggressive assumptions, they deviate from the original objective or the strategies of the company. Now, if management has significant doubt about the entity's ability to continue as a going concern, the uncertainty should be disclosed, irrespective of the conclusion that material uncertainty doesn't exist. And when material uncertainty do exist, one should make it very clear to the reader that entity's ability to continue as going concern is subject to material uncertainty. A management may need to make an additional disclosure in the board of directors report and also in the annual report as required by respective regulatory framework. The auditor should determine his responsibility towards such disclosures in accordance with SS 720, which deals with auditor's responsibility relating to other information. Here also, one should consider the time period. How much time should be assessed? Now, considering the requirement and in the current economic fungi, a minimum 12 months should be considered, or maybe a longer period depending upon the entity, but minimum 12 months should be considered for assessing the company's ability to continue going concern. The entity may consider a future assessment which may be beyond 12 months also, if they are fundamentally important to the going concern assumption. In this regard, important aspect to bear in mind are the longer the future period, the higher will be the management judgment required and higher degree of professional speculatism is required. As a result, entities can consider a longer period, but it must consider the availability of reliable information within the specified period of 12 months. And that is very important, friends. Now, when management refuse auditor's request to make the extent extend his assessment, then what should auditor do? Or auditor is unable to obtain sufficient audit evidence regarding the use of going concern assumption. So then how should we deal with such situation? Now this slide is basically on that. So here, and when management refuses auditor's request to make or extend his assessment, or auditor is unable to obtain a sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the use of going concern, then he may give a qualified opinion or disclaimer of opinion. Here, we need to communicate with those charged with governance whether the events and conditions constitute a material uncertainty and whether the management's use of going concern is appropriate. We also should communicate to those charged with governance the adequacy of related disclosures and wherever applicable, the implication in the auditor's report. Now, one important aspect is there will be a significant delay in approval of financial statement. Now, this is one of the signs of financial stress. So, auditor needs to inquire if there anything to do with the events or condition for going concern assessment, and if so, they should revisit the audit and perform additional procedure and consider the effect of such conclusion of such impact or events by concluding the auditor's opinion. So when auditors actually give a clean opinion, then generally auditors under the section material uncertainty relating to going concern section will report like this. And here they will give a reference of the events or those significant consideration which has been reported by the management and how they are dealing with those events in the notes to accounts with the corresponding disclosure in the financial and the auditor's report. This is just a part of that. Now here is this deals with the conclusion that adequate disclosure is not made. Here one should consider that under the basis for qualified opinion paragraph, we should clearly mention the situation indicates that material uncertainty exists that may cast significant doubt about company's ability to continue as going concern, and the financial statement do not adequately disclose this matter. This particular paragraph should be adequately written in the basis for opinion paragraph. Now, depending upon the perceived impact on the financial statement, auditor may consider issue adverse opinion. So this is just an illustrative example of how adverse opinion can be given for such circumstances and the basis of the adverse opinion. Yeah. Now, this is very important, friend. Now, this is directly impacting the scenario of COVID-19. subsequent event. Friends, on March 27, 2020, ICAI has issued accounting and auditing advisory for impact of coronavirus on financial reporting and auditors consideration, in which it is stated that entity must disclose significant recognition measurement uncertainties that might have created by the outbreak of COVID-19. In measuring various assets and liabilities, they should also disclose how they have been dealt with the impact of COVID-19 on the financial state position and financial performance of the entities. Auditors are required to perform procedures designed to obtain sufficient operational evidence that all events requiring adjustment of in the financial statements occurring between the date of financial statement and the date of auditor's report have been identified and appropriately reflected in the financial statement in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. It is necessary to consider events occur after the reporting period. The entity shall not prepare the financial statement on an ongoing concern basis if management decides that after the reporting period, either it intends to liquidate the entity or to cease trading, or that it has no realistic alternative to do so, or there will be deterioration in the operating results or the financial position after the reporting period, may indicate a need to consider the going concern assumption on the reporting date. Accordingly, entities are also required to monitor the event after the reporting date, but before the authorization of financial statement for the issues. What are the factors? Now, factor which can consider is due to COVID-19, a liquidity of the entity may be impacted, and as a result, it is not in a position to pay its liability that will fall due in the next 12 months. Or due to COVID-19, there may be a significant impairment in the recognized tangible and intangible assets held by the entity. Or there are huge losses that has to be recognized due to de-recognition of inventory at a net realizable value, which is significantly lower than those costs. Now, these are those factors which might raise a doubt about the subsequent event implication on the reporting date. Here, the exercise of professional spectrism is very important. The uncertainties and challenges associated with COVID-19 are more likely to result in significant management judgment, and in turn requires auditor's judgment, which requires the auditor to exercise professional spectrism in undertaking the work on the subsequent event. Applying professional spectrism in this regard means questioning and considering the sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence that all material subsequent events have been identified and are appropriately reflected in the financial statement in light of the circumstances. Written representation are required to be taken, and such written representation should be dated as near as practically possible to the auditor's report, but not after that date. That is very important. The auditor has no obligation to perform any additional procedure regarding after the date of auditor's report unless a fact becomes known to the auditors that it had been known to the auditor on the date of auditor's report, and which has caused to amend his auditor's report. So basically, this event of COVID-19 is known to the auditor before signing of today. If you are signing auditor's report, in such circumstances, this assessment is really warranted. So audit reporting under COVID. So when auditor has concluded that necessary accounting adjustments regarding the impact of COVID-19 are not adequate or appropriate in the circumstances, the auditor's opinion may be modified in this respect. The modification should be qualified or adverse depending upon the circumstances and depending on the materiality and the perception of the impact. Now, just to give you an illustration, the consequences of COVID-19 may have potential adverse impact on the cash flow, and which has triggered an impairment test. However, the management is not ready to do impairment assessment or is not carried out the impairment test on the date of balance sheet, which has created a significant doubt regarding the carrying value of those assets and the assumption used in the preparing the financial statement. In such circumstances, a modified opinion is required. It may also call for adverse opinion if the amount of those carrying value of those assets are really significant in nature. Now circumstances in a scenario where auditor determines that he is unable to obtain sufficient audit evidence, first they will do alternate audit procedure, and there also due to lockdown they might not be able to do an alternate audit procedure. Then he may suitably incorporate those matter in the auditor's report by way of either disclaimer of opinion or adverse opinion depending upon circumstances. Now, auditor's report also includes reporting on CARO as well as IFC. So there will be an impact of this COVID-19 on my reporting under CARO and IFC, which we'll be dealing in subsequent slides. The auditor may also include an emphasis of matter paragraph while assessing the impact of COVID-19, where an uncertainty relating to the future outcome is known to the auditor, or where there is a reasonable audit evidence available, which suggests that this catastrophe has not major impact on the financial statement. In such circumstances, adequate disclosure can be given in the notes to accounts, along with emphasis of matter paragraph, which will enable the reader of the financial statement to understand the implication on the COVID-19. But one should keep in mind that EOM paragraph cannot be used as a substitute for reporting the matter as key audit matter. Both are different. So one should be, careful in drawing, highlighting those matter in a EOM paragraph, because as mentioned, EOM paragraph is more to do with drawing attention of the management assessment about the going concern assessment, their policies or their procedure to meet or mitigate those risks, and we are just drawing attention in the auditor's report. Whereas key audit matter is basically the auditor's procedures, which auditor has conducted for making or for assessing or for arriving at a conclusion on a particular specified key risk area. So those both cannot be equated in that sense. So one has to be careful while drafting the key audit matter. EOM. The impact of COVID-19 on a specific area of financial statement needs to be evaluated for the purpose of KM. Now this includes like physical verification of inventory or impairment or ECL provision, that is expected credit loss provision or valuation. Now auditors should describe the identified events or condition disclosed in the financial statement that were the focus of auditor's attention, such as substantial operating losses, available borrowing facilities, and possible debt refinancing, or non-compliance with loan agreement or rating mitigation factor. When drafting the key audit matter in auditor's report, the auditor should not use, generic or a vague language, and should use entity-specific and clearly articulated language to explain the impact of COVID-19. Language of KM should bring out clearly the complexity arising out of COVID-19 on the verification aspect and the financial statement. Now here, I would like to practically draw attention, many of our audit is basically getting finalized offline, because we are not been able to, go to the audit place or the plants or the respective location to conduct our audit. And here we will be considering the digital, media or digital medium through which we are getting those related audit evidences. Now here one should consider, if it is significant, incorporating a key audit matter on verification on modified opinion. Verification of modified procedure. So here what we are doing is, instead of doing audit traditionally, we are obtaining various information through electronic media, which may be through email or through OneDrive or through shared drive, and also getting access to their system offline through VPN connection or any other connection, and doing the audit. And we may, audit discussion, we may do an audit discussion with the client either on a con call or a Zoom meeting or maybe on a WebEx meeting or whatever. So those alternative procedures are, taken by the auditor to conclude the auditing in the current scenario. If those significant matter is being considered for considering the audit for the current period, then one should think of incorporating those additional procedure or a modified procedures in light of the present pandemic and the restriction imposed on us while reporting key audit matter. That can be very useful thing to demonstrate the procedure which auditors have undertaken during the course of this pandemic and the alternate audit procedure conducted in the current scenario. Now, see, the COVID-19 would also have impact on CARO reporting as well as IFC reporting. In CARO, clause number 2, which specifically deals with physical verification of inventory, which requires auditor to comment whether the inventory of the company has been physically verified by the management at reasonable interval, and also requires the auditors to comment whether the material discrepancies noticed on such verification. If yes, then how those discrepancies have been dealt with in the books of account. In this regard, where auditor is unable to obtain appropriate audit evidence because of this lockdown. So while commenting under this clause, one should appropriately disclose the nature of fact, and also mention the alternative audit procedure as mandated by institute while giving this procedure in this reporting. The another requirement under the clause 5.7a, which talks about reporting of undisputed statutory due. Now, this clause requires reporting on the payment of statutory dues, including extent of arrears on the last day of the financial years. Now, considering the fact that the last day of the financial year 1920 falls during the lockdown period, an extension of time is being granted for payment of those dues by the government authority regulators. The commenting in respect of this clause should reflect the factual position regarding the extension of the date granted by the relevant authorities for the payment of such dues. Further, where company has made a payment within such extended due dates, it does not constitute a non-compliance and accordingly will not require to be reported under this clause. However, if there is no extension for due date and the option has been taken and an option has been given to make a payment at a later date upon the payment of interest or penalty, then it is a default and it should be reported. So either if the extension is without any penal consequences, then if the company has taken the extension, in such situation there is no default, no reporting is required. But if there is no action, no express extension given, but it has an option to make a payment later date with penal interest, then there's a default which needs to be reported in these circumstances. There is another clause, clause 3.8, which deals with default in repayment of loan to a financial institution, bank, government, or dues to debenture holders. Now, you would be aware, friends, that RBI issued a circular on 27th March 2020 on COVID-19 regulatory package. The circular provides that the companies may decide to opt for a moratorium period for a repayment of term loan, working capital financing facilities, and etc. However, during this period, interest will continue to charge, but they are exempted for making those payments. Where company has exercised this option, the auditor should make a clear factual statement in his report. Further, where company has made a payment within the extended due line, it does not constitute a non-compliance, and accordingly, no reporting is required to be made. But where they breach this in subsequent period, those reporting is required to be made. There is an additional reporting requirement in IFC regarding section 143(1), which requires that the auditor's report should also state whether the company has adequate internal financial control with reference to the financial statement in place and operating effectiveness of the control. Now, key factor one should consider while approaching the audit is make inquiries on change in the company's mode of carrying out operation in response to COVID-19 impact. For example, people working remotely and consequently the change in company's policies and procedures, including the execution of controls, for example, segregation of duty, etc. So specific inquiry can be made to find out, is there any change in the company's mode of carrying out operation in response to COVID-19? Also, auditor should make a specific matters for consideration in respect of those changes in the company's system of internal control. So the auditor needs to reassess and document the updated control environment and changes to the plan reliance of control in determining the responsibilities to identify risks. Based on that, the auditor may consider rewriting the audit plan to address the changes in the internal control framework, including those relating to the design and operation of internal controls and review controls. Auditor need to evaluate the availability of electric and digital evidence made available by the management and review control around the same, specifically for reliability, security, and storage of such evidences. The auditor should communicate with those charged with governance at every stage of audit, including the implication on the audit of the financial statement and reporting them. So reporting on internal financial control with reference to financial statement. In this case, the auditor suppose has identified a material weakness in the design or operation of internal controls, or the material weakness identified earlier remains unremedied, or there is a restriction on the scope of the management. In such circumstances, auditor should modify his opinion on IFC controls. Or where the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to form an opinion on the design or operating effectiveness of the internal financial control with reference to financial statement, the auditor should issue a disclaimer of opinion. This is the responsibility as far as COVID-19 in IFC is concerned. Other information. Friends, the auditor is also required to remain alert on the other information which is appears to be material misstatement. Now, what is other information? Other information contains those information which is included in the annual report, not forming part of financial statement, that is balance sheet or notes to accounts or auditor's report, which includes your director's report or MD&A or other financial ratios or any other financial performance report which company intends to give in its annual report. Such other information is now the responsibility of the auditor to get it vet and cross-verify with the financial reporting numbers. Now, other information may contain a materially false or misleading statement or a statement furnished negligibly or omits necessary information for the stakeholders. Thus, when auditor identifies an inconsistency, he determines either the other information is material misstatement, or the financial statements are material misstatement, or his understanding of the entity and environment needs to be updated. If other information is misstated, he asks the management to make corrections in the other information details, and if they refuse, he escalates this matter to those charged with governance. Now, even if, in spite of raising this issue to those charged with governance, if they are not been able to correct those misstatements, then auditor may take legal action or legal advice and consider of giving disclaimer of opinion on the financial statement, that he would not be able to comment on the management representation, or he may withdraw from his engagement. Now, there will be a situation where the other information may not be available to you before the signing of auditor's report. Now, if auditor report concludes that the material misstatement exists on the other information obtained by him after the date of after the date of auditor's report, then he shall ensure that it is duly corrected. If it is not duly corrected by the management, then he shall examine his legal right and obligation and seek an appropriate uncorrected misstatement to the attention of the user for whom the audit report is stated, or he may change his opinion also. So you may have to withdraw from the engagement also. SS 700, provides administrative reports in various circumstances for listed and unlisted entities. When one can actually, directly pick up those languages for reporting under these different situations. So I have not repeated for the sake of, duplication. So I have not repeated in this slide. KM, friends. Now, KM technically is defined as those matters in auditors, which in auditor's judgment were of most significant in the audit of the financial statement for the current period. Key matters are selected matters which are those communicated with those charged with governance. See, friends, as we discussed earlier, stakeholders, that is lenders, investors, creditors, believed that the erstwhile auditors report was, in that sense, too ballpark or too plain report and did not give them with the information which they were looking for. In order to be, this information is more required to understand the significant matters involved in the financial statement, which could influence the decisions of those investment or lenders or other business decisions. Now, auditor has to make two kinds of challenging assertion in the public domain here in the KM. First, that they bring out the internal matter about the entity's business that might may not be accepted by the management, and that reveals the details of audit process followed. Now, this second point here, which makes auditor, very careful while reporting those things. So, but it is argued that KM is basically, it is not for auditor story, but it is about the audit, what auditor has done in that audit, rather than putting the entire detail in the audit. So, key audit matter being a subset of a matter that are, discussed with those charged with governance, increase the interaction between the auditors, management, and those charged with governance, would result in significant amount of time to be invested in determining the key audit matter section of the auditor's report. Matter giving rise to the modified opinion or going concern disclosures are KM, but as they are already discussed or described elsewhere in the report, should not be repeated under the KM. So there may be a situation where some matters may be reported under the going concern paragraph, or maybe a modified opinion, basis of opinion, which may also, calls for a key audit matter, significant matter. But since it has already been reported elsewhere, we need not be repeating the KM matter. So KM paragraph includes a reference to them and the location with regard to those audit procedures which the auditor has considered necessary while performing the auditor's duty. UAM is not a substitute for KM, but a matter that does not qualify for KM, but which is for the fundamental use of the for the user's understanding of the financial statement, a UAM can be given rather than putting in a KM. So while reporting the key audit matter in the auditor's report, it has its own challenges that is expected, while under the KM reporting. So how do you identify the KM? First, we need to communicate the matters with those charged with governance. So when the auditors do SS 315 risk assessment, they identify significant matters which needs an auditor TCWG attention, and which can be discussed with those TCWG. Where once having discussed with those TCWG, those significant matters, auditor need to obtain a specific audit assertion or a specific audit related evidence to conclude those specific assertion. And if it is so material which needs auditor's attention, then this should be reported. So not any and every matter will be disclosed or referred to in KM reporting. Only those matter which has a specific audit risk, which has been discussed with those charged with governance, and against which the appropriate evidence has been collected while forming the opinion, one has to be considered for the purpose of reporting under this clause. So which are the potential areas, that key audit matter gives? One is there may be a situation where there is a situation where the revenue recognition is depending upon a future outcome of some litigation, or there may be a provisional rate which has been on which the revenue is recognized subsequent to the finalization of actual rate. So in such circumstances, if auditor is determined that The present revenue recognition is based on a provisional rate, which may subsequently, alter materially depending upon the outcome of the future rate. In such circumstances, the auditor needs to obtain an alternative audit evidence, and accordingly, it needs to be reported in the financial statement. Another area which can be a part of my KM is provisions and contingencies. Now, there may be a contingent liability which has been disclosed in the financial statement. Now, those contingent liabilities may be significantly, significant enough to, change the true and fair view of the financial statement if it is going in the other way. In such circumstances, what audit procedure, which like, obtaining a legal opinion or discussing with the legal counsel or taking a stock of similar view in other companies, those audit procedure which auditor has considered necessary or which auditor has obtained to report on the contingent liability needs to be reported as a part of KM. Now, there may be disputed liabilities, disputed taxation demands, which company might have, under discussion with a different level, or maybe under the disputed with ITAT or maybe High Court or any other level. So those taxation matter, if it has a significant bearing on the financial statement or significant bearing on the carrying value of deferred taxes or the advanced tax or the disputed tax value, then those needs to be taken as a part of key audit matter. Or there, another important aspect is impairment of assets or impairment of, carrying value of financial guarantee. So those impairment exercise, depending upon the COVID-19 situation, may be also be considered while assessing the present financial statement. And if those significant judgment which auditor have considered while addressing the key audit matter needs to be brought in by, those will be reported under the key audit matter. There may be another key audit matter with regard to IT system and control. Now, where the company have a significant part of its operation control through IT management system or through control environment, where the IT involvement is very huge. In such circumstances, auditor might have considered alternative procedure in terms of obtaining those IT related reports or using the work of an expert or IT related professionals to get the assurance regarding control environment. Now, those matter, if it is significant, that needs to be reported by way of KM, and the procedure which auditor has carried out has to be accordingly described in the KM procedures. Or there may be industry related matter, like significant change due to COVID-19, for example, aviation industry, where there may be a significant impact on the operations of the entity, and which today, while considering the going concern, may have been considered in the going concern assessment, and there may be a significant deterioration in the value of carrying value of the inventories for that industry. So those things has been, maybe considered while reporting under this KM reporting. Yeah. Now this is just, so while reporting under key audit matter, there is a challenge, which will come while a company is under joint audit or when the audit of financial statement. So there is an expected, see, in a joint audit situation, it is expected to increase the scope of joint audit. See, in case of a joint audit, the planning is done jointly. The performance is, of course, separate, but the responsibility is joint. The alignment of joint auditor is critical on the aspect of significant matters. So basically, see, when you have a joint auditor with you, identification of key audit matter becomes challenging, because there may be a division of work between both of you or between many of you. Now, which area to consider, because it depends upon the professional perspective of each auditor. So there a collective or collaborative efforts by all the auditors is actually necessary. Another challenge will come in respect of consolidated financial statement, where there is a possibility that, like presently in India, we don't have to report key audit matter in respect of listed, unlisted entities. Now, here a question will come while reporting by the holding company auditor, how those key audit matter will be identified for the purpose of reporting by the holding company auditor in respect of those unlisted entities. Or there may be entities which are incorporated outside India, where there was no reporting requirement with regard to KM. In such circumstances, also the group auditor, will be, having an onus of identification of those key audit matter of the respective entity. Here, the scope is also increased to include the group auditor to discuss with those respective management, and to identify those relevant aspects while reporting this. So this significantly increased the work of the group auditors while reporting on CFS statement regarding the key audit matters. Yeah. So these are the technical inputs, as far as the presentation is concerned. Now, what I prefer is, now let us take the take the questions which you people have, because technically speaking, one minute, yeah. Technically speaking, friends, the auditing standard is such that practically when we discuss the questions, it will be more, fruitful, or more interactive. Session will be more helpful. So that is why I've kept almost a half an hour for discussing the various queries which you might have. So let us take up those queries one by one, and I'm happy to answer those questions.
Hiral, can you just on your camera first? Yeah.
Am I visible now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah.
Members can ask their questions.
Yeah.
Yes, there are certain questions on the Q&A panel. There is one question from Jayesh Pandit ji, that do disclosures as to reduce salary and effect on the accumulated provision for retirement benefits post-COVID required, as the liability will be reduced in next year?
Yeah, I'll take the one. Yeah. So first question is basically, kindly inform effective date for changes introduced. Okay, so I'll go one by one the questions. So Mr. Kiran has asked this question. So basically, the changes is already introduced since 1/4/19. So basically, all the effective period for March 19 onwards, it is applicable. Second is, do disclosures do disclosure as to reduce salary and effect on the accumulated provisions for retirement benefit post-COVID require, as the liability will reduce in the next year. So yeah, so basically, what will happen is, if you anticipate that in near future, because of COVID-19, the staff is getting retrenched, or maybe there is a reduction in the staff. So while giving the assumptions to the actuary, one should consider those future impact. So accordingly, when the actuary will give you a valuation, they automatically will factor the retrenchment date if required, while giving the impact in the financial statement. So there is no specific reduction disclosure is required. Once you get these things from the actuary, you can rely on that. Or what you consider is those reduction rate which actuary has considered or the assumption which actuary has considered while giving with this valuation, has to be scrutinized to make it more realistic. This is due to COVID work from home requirements. Yeah. So
then continuation to the above query only.
Yeah. So no. So basically, see, the salary will not reduce. No. See, basically, what will happen is, there may be so there may be entity may take a call that since company the staff is working from home, they may not pay the full salary, right? In such circumstances, again, the assumptions needs to be appropriately extended to the actuary while making those provisions. And see, this is a temporary situation. You may not have encountered, the overall provision for retirement benefit is for the longer duration, and which we expect that this pandemic in the near future will go away. In such circumstances, there is no specific assumption which requires to be done for those reductions in the salary, according to my assessment. Going concern is from 2020, correct? No, going concern was there in March 19 also, and now it is in March 20 also. So both their going concern is required to be given.
Now we'll just request Krishna Kumar Parikh ji to ask his question. Mr. Krishna Kumar Parikh. And then Vasant Bhai Kothari can ask.
Yeah, Krishna ji.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Krishna, tell me.
When this audit report will be effective, means date of, which is the date of, which is the year in which this audit report is effective?
1819, if I understood your question correctly, the new audit report requirement came from which year, right?
Okay. This year only. 1920.
1819.
18.
So March 19 and March 20, from March 19 onwards, the new audit report requirement has come.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Vasantbhai Kothari.
Vasantbhai, you're on mute.
Nikhil bhai, if you are able to ask the question, then.
Yeah, Anil. Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
I think one of the thing is now because of COVID, now what is going to probably happen is maybe for a year, employer may not raise the salary. So while working out on a gratuity liability assumptions, normally they will take 10%, 12%, 15% based on the company's policy of salary increment. Should we make adjustment there also?
See, Nikhil bhai, basically, you're talking about future payment, right?
Yeah, gratuity actual valuation where they do assumption. So they will take it, let's say 10% increment in salary.
Yeah.
Now because of COVID, now I mean as of today, now considering the effect after the balance sheet date, looks like at least for a year it will remain. Now when we read the newspapers, for a year there may not be vaccine. Medicines will take at least a 1 year after trial to come. So probably impact may roll over to the next financial year also. In that case, can we say, let's say this year they have not increased any salary, or let's say they have increased only 5% because of special condition. Now, should you factor these assumptions into actual valuation for gratuity when they consider increment in salary? Let's say normally they are taking 10% and now company has increased only 5%. Can we assume that this is just 1 year of effect, and so in assumptions you continue to take 10% as incremental in salary, or should you reduce it to 5%? Or then you average out, like in next 5 years, average could be 7% or something.
So yeah, understood. So basically, see, as you rightly mentioned, if impact, if company, if you think that in the for next 2 years or next 1 year, the raise of salary may not be as compared to what it was in earlier year, right? So what one should consider here is a reasonable down trending of that escalation cost may be considered. So you may probably, discuss with the actuary and tell the actuary to take a reduced rate of escalation for the purpose of salary.
Exactly. That itself is my point. Now looking at overall scenario for the economy as such, I don't think, to come back on the track will take at least 2-3 years. So I don't think anybody will go for increment of 10, 12, 15%, which normally they do every year in a normal economic conditions. Well of the companies, except barring few, IT or FMCG, because people can't stop eating. And now that more and more have gone on the digitization, so IT and FMCG have the field day. Other than these sectors could be affected, and maybe pharma to an extent, depending on which therapeutic segment they are in. Everybody else has impact on their profitability for next 2-3 years. So I doubt everybody will increase. So that's why I just want to raise it to my professional brother that they must do this adjustment. Average is 10, at least reduce to 10, 7, considering average increment for next year. It will not remain the same percentage what it was in last 3 or 5 years. So
Nikhil bhai, here, see, I just wanted to draw one attention here is, so there may be a warranted adjustment in near future. That is, I don't deny that. But what is important here is that it depends upon company to company. See, you can't have a blanket thing that it will be reduced only. So there, see, like this pandemic may have impact for 1 year, maybe 1.5 to 2 years. But when I'm talking about actual liability or retirement benefit, it is beyond that. So one has to be, very reasonable taking the assumption. If there is really required adjustment, if assuming that your workforce is such that it will get retired in near couple of years or so, in such situation you may consider adjusting it on a lower down. But ultimately, it all depends upon situation of the entity and the type of workforce or the average age of the workforce.
So
So here you may have to.
Yeah, go ahead, Anil.
So here you may have to discuss with basically the actuary and try to assess whether in his assumption do we really want to factor those while calculating the overall future liability. So rather than simply taking it 10% or 7% may not really work according to me.
No, my personal feeling is that there has to be some reduction, maybe 100 basis points or whatever. I mean, last time average they're taking 10%, it should be at least 9, 8 or 7. I mean, depending again, as I said, except 2-3 industries, and your client is in which industry.
Sorry, could I interrupt?
Yeah, yeah,
Paresh bhai.
Contributing
Nikhil, no, you are not right. See, when you are doing an incremental salary and the attrition rate, it is for a...
Also, I was coming to that.
One sec.
Yeah.
Nikhil, let me finish.
Yes.
So, you are looking at a long period of time.
Absolutely right.
Now, so 1 or 2 years aberrations, you cannot change your either an attrition rate or a salary incremental,
Agreed.
salary increase, unless the management says, okay, now we have not increased the salary and we are going to stay put at this level.
Correct. My point of raising for my professional brother was that depending on the industry in which your client is, it is quite possible that some company may come out with a policy next 3 years, 5 years will increment only by X percentage or 70% of normal increment.
No, Nikhil, 3 or 5 years also may be very, very, not substantial, because when you are computing gratuity, Mr. Jayesh Pandit is there on the group right now. He's under discussion. You should ask him. He is the one who does the actuary day in, day out.
Yeah, his comments is welcome.
So we'll ask Jayesh also. So please don't consider. See, even escalation rate, sometimes you have given 25% increase, but you have to consider inflation.
That could be one of.
Nikhil, let me please finish.
Okay.
So, that incremental, if it is 20%, you don't take 20% as incremental, because you have to bring down to the present value and the inflation rate. So generally that salary incremental also, you will see that it would be in and around 6-7%. Jayesh bhai can confirm, we had this discussion also on this aspect.
Jayesh bhai, you can interrupt here, sir.
Yes. Basically, what we can do is that technically you can take next year salary raise to be 0% or 5% or 4%, and then continue the normal 2 years end, so that the OCI part will get adjusted if we take next 2 years to be on a lower side, and then normal from that day onwards. So that could be a better option, that okay, next 2 years we know that it's going to be 5 to 6% or so, and going forward it would be 8 to 10%. So that's one part one can take. Secondly,
in long run, these 1 or 2 years aberration will even out, no?
Yeah, the long. What would happen? Why I'm telling this is because that OCI part, because now we are under Ind AS,
Right.
So that OCI, if under AS 15 even out is fine enough, but under Ind AS that OCI comes into picture, so you have to take year by year. So next 2 years OCI figure will not get jumpy. That is why you can
it's a good idea, good suggestion.
Correct.
Yeah.
I agree. And Jayesh bhai, also whether you have to consider attrition rates, what Paresh bhai also raised, because of typical condition, attrition could be high for 2-3 reasons. People would left on their own thinking it is now risky to go to office, so they might wait, and obviously a lot of people would have quit by now. I mean, just do some guidance on that. See,
frankly speaking, I'll talk as an auditor rather than from the actuarial perspective, right?
Then you talk about as an actuary also.
Both put together. See, basically, whatever attrition rate we need to consider higher, but the biggest problem which is lying in the valuation is in case of leave encashment, because what all the companies have done is that they have adjusted the accumulated leave against the days they have not worked, right?
Correct. 4 leaves. Correct.
So that what happens that then these whatever they have adjusted in the next year, it has to be provided as a CTC into the previous year, which would balloon the liability of all the companies. See, basically, for example, suppose I have got say 50 days to my credit, right? And next 2 months no one has come, right? So these 50 days, if I would have encashed at the time of retirement, but these 50 days got adjusted against my not coming to the factory or office.
Correct. So normal salary it is adjusted against.
So that salaries got paid, which is a CTC part of it. If I would have encashed, I would have got basic salary. But this availment is of CTC, and that's a bigger challenge for everybody, including company and including us.
Very good point, Jayesh. Very good point.
Yeah.
But so I don't think so anyone is doing at present. I have not seen.
See, that's what I said. It's a bigger challenge. So that's why first I said I'll talk as an auditor. So that it's a challenge for the actuary, but for the auditor, it's a requirement. So you should be going in for a higher provision.
Very good point. Very good.
Yeah. Good point.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jayesh. Thank you.
Thanks.
But all members should know Jayesh Pandit is from K. Pandit and Company, very well-known actuary firm, and he's a chartered accountant and now actuary, and now he's more on the actuarial side than being an auditor or a chartered accountant.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jayesh Bhai, from Vilaypala Study Circle.
Thank you, Jayesh Bhai.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now I request Mr. Parthiv Parekh to ask his question. Mr. Parthiv.
Parthiv bhai.
So there is already there are 2 queries open. Can I take up those?
Yes, Parthiv bhai.
Yeah, Parthiv.
Hinel bhai will take these queries which are written by Tejas Gandhi.
Okay. So Tejas Bhai's query is that if a company is giving a special bonus to key management on completion of certain tenure of service, whether actual valuation is required or proportionate amount payable over a period of time can be provided in the books of account. So basically, this is more to do with provisioning requirements. So here, see, basically, if the company has already crystallized the special bonus, then there is no question of actual valuation. Basically, the actual provision has to be made in the books of account rather than making actual valuation. So, if you can add further facts, then I think I'm able to tell more. But apparently, the bonus has to be provided in toto when it is already been decided for a particular key management person. The next question is there, or if there is uncertainty as a going concern of a subsidiary, and therefore management has initiated a merger with holding company, can going concern risk be mitigated? No. So here, basically, what I understand is a company is already been, in difficulty. The investment is the subsidiary is already in difficulty, and because of those difficulties, the holding company has initiated a merger. Now, here one is to consider in a standalone financial statement when you finalize for the holding company, the impairment is to be seen for SFS statement basically. So there are standalone financial statement and also CFS. So I am talking about standalone financial statement where the company is holding an investment in subsidiary, and if the company is carrying a subsidiary at cost, then if the cost is in that sense is not the reflective of the carrying value of the investment, then the impairment has to be done to suitably adjust in the standalone financial statement. As far as CFS is concerned, when the subsidiary company gets incorporated in the company, then automatically the loss gets accounted for. So as such, it is not the going concern getting mitigated for the company as such from the subsidiary company is concerned. So for subsidiary company, when they report, if the significant condition or significant uncertainty lies for the going concern, then that should be reported accordingly in the auditor's report and according in the management report and accordingly drawn attention by the auditors.
Mr. Parthiv? You can just unmute yourself.
Okay.
One
Any other members has any question?
So no, I think there is a fallback question is there by Mr. Tejas Gandhi.
Yeah.
It says that a company is going to pay a certain amount at the end of 5 years, and employee has only completed 2 years of services. So proportionate provision of 5 years would suffice, or would we need actual evaluation? Now, strictly going by the requirement of AS 15 and of course the Ind AS, if this is a long-term benefit which company intends to give it to employee to its employee. In such situation, in my view, the actual evaluation is required if the benefit is payable beyond a period of 1 year. Yeah, next.
Any more questions, participants? Members?
I think Janam, you can give the vote of thanks.
Fine. Thank you, Hinal Bhai, for providing a material to all our members as to how we need to conduct the audit for this year and the reporting under the COVID environment. It was a good insight for the members while they will be doing the audit for March 20 and the subsequent period, the event that has happened. It will be really helpful. And I am also helpful to all the seniors of the Vile Parle Study Circle, who have raised the questions and made it interactive for all the members to get certain points. So thank you, Hinal Bhai, for the good discussion, and all the seniors, thank you very much. Members, I'll just have a few announcements. We have our next meeting of the Vile Parle Study Circle on 1st of August on Code of Ethics, on 8th of August for issues under GST, audit and annual return, and on 6th of September under section 44 AD and section 44 AB. So we all can attend this virtual meetings and take the benefit. Thank you, members. Now we end this meeting. Thank you, Hinal Bhai.
Thank you everybody. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Hinal Bhai.